Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Tech Can Save Us podcast brought to you by Literal Humans. As always, I'm Paul David, founder and CEO of Literal Humans, and I'm joined today by Nick Lenten, founder and CEO at Ahead Health. Welcome to the pod, Nick.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here, and thanks for the invite.
Yeah, good to have you on. Well, folks, today we're going to talk about scaling preventative health and building Europe's AI-driven health operating system, the Health OS for Europe. That's what Nick and the team at Ahead Health are working on. By way of introduction, Ahead Health is building the AI-driven prevention platform for Europe, offering advanced health checkups in under 60 minutes to bring elite-level preventative care to the general public. Nick is a veteran of the tech world, having previously served as head of product at Google, small firm you may have heard of, leading global teams for Google Flights. Thank you very much. That's where I get my flights. And Google Shopping. And as the first employee and CPTO/CMO of Coolblue, where he helped scale the company to over $1 billion in revenue. Now he's pivoted to healthcare with the mission that it's time to build for maximum impact. And I know that's an area where people are feeling a lot of pain, literally and figuratively, no pun intended. But yeah, good of you to make that pivot, and we're excited to dig into the conversation today, Nick.
Excited too.
So first question I always like to ask is kind of about the landscape. We love for our guests to kind of paint the picture of the sector and the space that they're working in for our audience. So talk to us about this European healthcare model, and why does it need an AI-driven sort of preventative medicine prevention pivot? What are some of the gaps and broken elements in the current system here?
Doctors are scarce, therefore they're expensive, and that's one of the reasons why they tend to not be able to make time for prevention and need to focus on treating the disease that's in front of them, or the diagnosis that's in front of them, or the symptom that's in front of them. I think that's a general thing across the world. I think in Europe, though, we have a couple of additional components to it. We have an aging population. We have an aging population also of doctors that are pensioning out of the system. And our payer model is, I think, very democratic, which is great, but it also doesn't always, therefore, foster a lot of innovation. And therefore, you see that the US is usually a couple of steps ahead of the game in terms of thinking about prevention, investing in your own health, being able to find, sometimes for like extreme amount of money, don't get me wrong, and that's one of the things I want to democratize, but these edges to be able to live a longer, healthier life. And I think investing in a platform that takes some of that elite level, doctor level, concierge healthcare, and tries to bring that across European systems, that's a mission I get very excited about. And it's part AI, right? AI unlocks efficiency, unlocks quality, and unlocks things that doctors can't make time for, can't do. So there's a lot of data quickly to make sense of it. But it's also just working really good human doctors. It's like finding ways to do this in a regulatorily, data privacy, locally hosted, good way to do this. So it's not only AI, it's the whole product that we need to build to unlock this as a value proposition for our customers.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, one of our favorite health tech clients was Aura, and you probably heard of them. It's weird to wear one of your clients, but we did some work with them, from kind of 2022 into 2024, and helping them kind of unlock the sleep vertical, and we worked with their research team and helped them, just like make sure that a lot of the stuff they were putting out there was really valid. But one of the things I took away from that was, why isn't my wearable talking to my GP, my doctor, talking to my trainer at the gym, maybe if I have like a nutritionist or an osteopath, like how do we like stitch all this together and truly have a preventative approach to make sure that I'm attacking my health as I should. So would love to like dig into that. And, one of the promises that you've made is, preventative healthcare of the top 0.1% for the rest of us, right? I think that's a bold promise. Can you define that level of sort of elite care? What does it look like, and why has it not been accessible now, and why could it be accessible?
Yep. Let me be very clear. It's the vision that we're working towards. It's not something I can offer today out of the box. I'm very excited to be chipping away at the problem, though. So yeah, you can fly to New York or maybe Zurich and then get for $250,000 a concierge healthcare physician if you can afford it, and you find someone in your network to refer you to that person. And then maybe you have a 2-day complete checkup with everything from imaging to blood tests to EKGs to all kinds of other very fancy tests. And then maybe a half a day of conversation with the doctor to make a plan. And then the doctor is for the rest of the year available for you on WhatsApp or your other favorite messaging app to refer you to other specialists, the elite specialists that are available, maybe to that top 0.1%. And that's amazing if you can afford it and find it. I would love to pick from those things and see how we can use process optimization, AI, separating the fancy stuff that doesn't move the needle as much to the actual core things that do move the needle medically and clinically, and implement that for broader populations. That means today we make something that is not super accessible yet, at least not in European markets. For instance, extensive blood tests, extensive imaging, calcium scoring, full body MRI, the dedicated MRIs, blood panels for hormones, blood panels for just core longevity markers. Make it very easy to book those with high quality partner clinics, then let them be reviewed by actual human doctors assisted by AI, and that transform that into a report you can actually read as a human and not a medical human, and then be able to see the next steps on it that you can then take the next day. That's what we do today. I think from there, we have a long roadmap of features to build towards that vision that I just described.
And before we get too deep in the product, I want to stay on kind of like the market and the landscape. It sounds like you've landed in the Swiss market specifically, and I'd be curious why you believe that's the right incubator for, you know, a high-tech health platform like this compared to maybe the rest of the EU or the US. Like, what is it about the Swiss market specifically?
For me, it's about three things. It's about the health part, it's about building a company as a founder, and it's about talent. So for the health part, Switzerland is the second most expensive healthcare market in the world after the US. People are more used here to pay out of pocket for their healthcare. So if you build something that is currently mostly out of pocket, somewhat reimbursed, but mostly out of pocket, this is a way to innovate more quickly with those self-payers first. That's one. Second one, as a founder, having built companies elsewhere too, Switzerland is a lot more like the US than it is like Germany or the Netherlands in terms of fundraising environment, in terms of labor laws, in terms of just the closeness to regulators and being able to work and innovate with them. So that's why I like Switzerland a lot. And the third is talent density, especially in the AI and engineering fields, also medical fields. There's just top talent available here. Google has the largest engineering hub outside of the US in Zurich, 4,000 people, last count. Also OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, Apple, they all have their labs here. ETH is a great university. So I think there's just a lot of talent here that I can hire.
That's great. Amazing. No, good. Well, great context. I mean, I didn't know all that about the Swiss market, and maybe our audience didn't as well. So good to have that. Would love to dig in your product now and maybe ask a broad question first. You mentioned kind of a focus on being customer obsessed. And you're working in a traditionally sort of clinical industry, obviously. So walk us through like how you've thought about designing, you know, a health product, a health tech product that people actually want to use and responds to, you know, customer needs and wants, rather than one that, you know, I have to get on the NHS app and it's kind of clunky and, you know, maybe something that they don't love using. Not that I have any personal say in the matter, but yeah.
Well, I started with personal experience, as many of these things do. I wanted to get a checkup. I found a way through a contact form to get this checkup, and I had to do 2-3 other types of tests at other clinics. Then I got these PDFs in German, which I don't read that well, with all this medical language. It actually found an aneurysm in my brain, but nobody bothered to call me about saying, hey, actually, clinically, it's not that important. You can still do contact sports. Just it's a nice picture to have to look at in 2 years to see if it has changed or not. So that was a really, really bad experience. So that's sort of the bar that I need to cross, but I want to cross it by a big margin. And for me, like I know I sound super obvious, but it starts by really, really listening to every customer that I have through my platform. So I have 2 to 3 calls with customers that have done our checkup, and I try to understand why they chose us, what did they like, what did they hope to get out of it, what they did not get out of it. And from all of those conversations, I learn exactly what to build the next week and the next month to make that experience better. For me, it's about what I said just now, like this whole product. It's not just an AI translator. It's not just being able to, as a Swiss medical clinic and in the future, a German medical clinic, being able to process healthcare data or be able to employ doctors so they can help with that data translation. It's not just having a great brand that people trust. It needs to be everything. And then as a product person, you need to just very, very carefully think about how to slice that up to start with a minimum lovable product and then build another slice of it, another slice of it, another slice of it. The people that are raving about us talk about feeling helped throughout the whole journey, right? It's about, of course, a smooth booking process, but also open to call up if something goes wrong and being helped by Dennis, my co-founder, or Laura, our customer success lead. And it's about then getting the report and actually having something useful in it. It's about everything. And that's what I learned from Coolblue, where in the end, the net promoter score of 78 comes about making sure there's no friction and then excelling with delight on everything from how the thank you page of your e-commerce journey looks and makes you smile, to the box that you get your product delivered in. It needs to be all great. That's very hard work, but it's in the end, I think, the way to build value and be able to capture some of that too.
So digging more into the product a bit more, you've got, kind of the 60-minute checkup, and you started to move into this, earlier talking about, leveraging AI to kind of outperform traditional diagnostics. Your platform, you've got that, comprehensive health check that can happen in under an hour. Would love to dig into I think you mentioned this a little bit. So if we're treading over, feel free, we can move forward. But some of the core data points, you mentioned some of the biological markers that, you prioritize to give users the biggest bang for their buck, and kind of explain for our audience, like how that AI layer functions within the platform. Is it primarily diagnostic speed, long-term health tracking? Walk us through the product a bit more.
Yep. I think it's helpful to first zoom out a bit to what I want to build over time. I want this to be the most personalized health check and health companion, preventive health companion we can possibly build. And that begins with really deeply understanding you as a person, as the family history, patient history, everything you already collected about yourself, right? That might be blood tests you've done, an MRI scan you've done in the past, doctor's notes, your Whoop data. All of that needs to be together with risk questionnaires, risk scoring, something that you can then use to create a personalized protocol. That's what I want to do. I come from e-commerce though, and I know that if you try to get people through a 20-page questionnaire, that nobody ends at the end of it. Also, I'm building a startup, so you need to chew this off step by step. And that's why we started with this comprehensive checkup with MRI and other imaging, blood tests and other biomarkers that we test, where we just hack the hell out of this MRI protocol. My co-founder has a PhD in this stuff in MRI. I've got radiologists on my team to optimize a protocol that would otherwise take 60, 70 minutes and get it down to 35 minutes with higher quality data. And then use that to not just do the diagnostics, which is handled with the radiology partners that we work with, but also extract additional biomarkers out of it, like visceral fat, body composition, other things, and then integrate it together with all the personal history that we get from you, the risks that we capture, the blood biomarkers, of course, and then the doctor's viewpoint to this report. That's what we currently offer. And then step by step, we're adding additional tests, additional data integration. So that's how we try to bite off this problem. But the end goal is this personalized companion. My hope, and I see that already, once you have that trust of a customer with that first checkup, then you're in a conversation, right? Then you can further personalize that protocol and the approach. So I hope that bet works out.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, that's such a brilliant, bold vision to kind of build towards. And, when you go to your site, I mean, it sounds like you're focusing on a few things. Like there's an MRI and the blood test, and you're kind of building from there. Maybe that's a good way to sort of segue into the growth strategy. And we spend a bit of time here because we'd be remiss, we're a growth consultancy and a growth agency. Want to kind of understand, that, merging a product and sort of, growth strategy. So you've got a product roadmap, and talk us through how are you merging that with the growth strategy? What does at a really high level your growth strategy look like? You're raising. What are there certain goals you're shooting for in terms of user acquisition and sort of retention? Talk us through at a really high level that growth strategy.
It's sort of the boring part, but I think it's an important one. In the end, the product needs to lead the growth, right? It needs to just be very, very good and therefore create its own momentum. But sure, you also still have to educate people to know about you. So that's what we're absolutely focused on. I come from a world, and that's still sometimes difficult for me to grok. People used to type in, I want to flight from Zurich to San Francisco, and then they click on it. Or I used to sell electronics, and people type, I want to buy an iPhone, and they click on the ad. Not that many people type in, I want a preventative blood test. You really need to sell this with ambassadors, with storytelling, with education. And that's where I'm spending a lot of time to make sure that Ahead as a brand, the website, all of the communication that we do, the partners that we work with, both in the cities that we operate in, but also people that are elite athletes in Switzerland or in other countries that we work with, help us grow this platform. I think that's a lot of attention goes there. The second is working with actual medical clinics and partners in the field. So I think it's a lot about longevity clinics, about people adjacent to direct medical doctors, but still have medically related questions like nutritionists, personal trainers, folks like that can integrate testing into their platform, and we can build and grow this together. And I think it's a lot about spreading the word, right? If you have this customer experience that you're excited about, you probably want maybe a family member to do this as well, and helping there to create levers to create more growth. That's another thing that I'm I'm focused on a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I love to think about too. We think a lot about brand, right? And obviously, like, I totally agree with you. I'm humble enough as a growth strategist and a marketer to know, like, if you've got an amazing product, like, you kind of don't need me, like, to some extent. I think, the great products and people loving your product, that's your moat. That's your best moat, right? But yeah, there's a little bit of, hustle that we need to do to just get the word out there. That's, maybe never going to go away. Who knows? But thinking about brand, like, what are some of the pillars that you've put in the ground, or stakes in the ground, as they say, around building your brand, building a brand that people trust, especially when it comes to dealing with people's sensitive health data and like some of the most personal moments of their life when they're maybe struggling with an illness or something like that. What are some of the key features in terms of the brand identity for a head health that you've invested in?
Yep. I worked with some amazing brand strategists on this and brand designers with a couple of prompts that we worked alongside of. So there's a lot in this longevity space that is, for instance, very, very dark brands, male brands, data. It almost looks like a SaaS platform. And I wanted to build something for everyone, something for at least the cohort of 35 to 70 that I think is the people that are most interested in this type of investing in your own health. And that's where the brand values that we created, like real, I think that maybe one to focus on. I always have this image in my mind that I would like this to feel like the doctor that is also the best man, in my case, on my wedding, right? He or she would talk to me like I'm a real human being, cut it to me straight with no language that I don't understand, not sidestepping all the big problems in it. So like, real is one thing in terms of tone of voice and on how we appear on the website and in all of the communication that we do. Real, for instance, also very clearly going against like getting AI to create a bunch of testimonial videos for me that are not real human beings, right? So I want to be real. So that's one of the cultural values and also brand values that we've instilled here. The other one is relentless. I think, especially in this day and age, you need to ship fast, constantly surprise people with all the new things that you've been able to build and deliver on. So in terms of culture and in terms of brand, we are trying to be relentless in our shipping velocity, but also in our focus on quality and the people we work with. So from day one, I've tried to find the best doctors that can work with me and want to work with me and with us. And that is such a huge asset, I feel, every quarter that I get to build this company, because it compounds, right? Good people, good doctors want to work with good people, good doctors. So if you then think about your next country, like Dr. Donati and Dr. Fisher work with me, I can then work with them to excite the next group of doctors in Munich to also work with us. So I think that all compounds. And in terms of data, to be very clear, I think regulation is something that nobody truly loves as a founder, but it is extremely important trust mark as well. And I embrace that we are medical. We're not wellness, we're medical. And with medical comes a certain responsibility in data security, in processes, in getting all the check marks. So that's something that we just lean into, let's say.
Yeah, and how do you maintain, like, you want to move, right? So how do you maintain that speed and sort of, those goals and that intention, but also staying within those strict regulatory frameworks, especially when it comes to, European medical data, for example?
I think it's really about very deliberately in a disciplined manner, choosing what type of product or project this is. Is this at risk of being a medical device? Okay, then a different speed. And maybe that we just have to accept that moves on a different speed than this new cool AI feature that we want to build into the reporting interface that's clearly labeled as such, which is different than our booking platform, which is it's very important, but just a scheduling tool. You might need to be, everybody in the team needs to be very careful not to do everything at the speed of a medical device or everything at the speed of that AI tool. That's where you just have different speeds in your own organization. And then there's, I think was it Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, right? Move fast and break things was the first thing, but then move fast and have stable infrastructure. Yeah. So I'm very, very happy that I have a CTO who obsesses about making sure that the core is very good, yeah. So that all the playing around and the pirating that we do around it can happen at a different speed.
I love the amendment to move fast and break things. And yeah, infrastructure, it's critical. It's one thing I think you realize as a founder and a business owner, like, man, I've got to really nail the infrastructure, because then, the product comes out of that infrastructure, yep. Right? So yeah, critical. I'm glad you mentioned your CTO. I'd love to dig in a bit into your sort of your team, your leadership and the team. That's such a critical part of any growth strategy. And I saw you're looking for a founding CMO. So we'd love to, yep. Like, what's your sort of dream candidate or your dream human for that role? How does it relate to kind of who you are, who your CTO is, who the rest of your team are? And how does that factor into your sort of growth strategy? Because that's obviously a critical role for it.
Yep. I'm so proud of my team. I think almost everyone has been a founder or has led big teams before. I've got a very, very experienced team that I think therefore can also move fast, especially with all of the new tooling around. So have good judgment, understand what's around the corner, and therefore can prevent a couple of mistakes. We'll still make a bunch of them, don't get me wrong, but at least some of them will be prevented. And that's where I see a couple of things also for that CMO role, for instance. I'd love for that person to have built a website before, or maybe even a whole engineered system. I think having some technical skills these days is extremely helpful, at least for the next year until Claude comes with a new release and make that unnecessary too. But knowing what to prompt if you're building out your automated marketing system and making sure that the analytics are piped well and that the API is connected in the right way and that you build infrastructure to then ship your other marketing things on top of more quickly. I think technical, is quite helpful. Then the second is this rare unicorn, but I've seen them, so I know they're around, of both knowing and understanding performance marketing, so understanding how to do Meta and Google really well, but at the same time have taste for brand, right? It doesn't have to be the brand strategist or the creative director themselves, but at least like know what good looks like. I think that's very, very important. And then 3, I think it's and that's something I wrote about as well, is I think this new game of the attention economy is something I don't feel super native to. I'm not a LinkedIn influencer. I'm not an Instagram influencer. I'm happy to do a dance on TikTok if that needs to happen, but somebody needs to tell me the choreography, because I would only make it very, very cringy otherwise. So I would love to find a partner that can help me find that language to tell the story to the broadest and widest audience possible.
Yeah, it's something we work on. We sort of run, we call founder branding, executive branding for a number of our clients. And it's such a challenge, like to, find their voice and, not be cringe and not do the LinkedIn broetry and all that stuff. Like, but it's critical, and it's not for every founder. And I think, you're coming at it with a good instinct of like, look, I want to be my authentic self, but I also want to get the word out there. I want to sell. And so finding that sort of fusion, I think is important. To chat about that offline, but yeah,
of course.
I think it's a really it's something I struggle with even myself as a founder. Like, how do I show up? Why am I showing up that way? What is it accomplishing? But yeah, you've got a good instinct for it, so you'll probably be.
Thanks.
Was curious about kind of 2 things. One, talk to me about fundraising in the current VC climate that we know, and then my last sort of question on growth strategy here is about kind of this health tech piece of, a lot of times it can be one and done, right? Like someone will get a checkup, they'll leave.
Yep.
I would love to hear about your strategy for kind of truly making it kind of like a daily, weekly health OS for people. So 2 different but related questions: fundraising and then sort of customer retention.
Yep. Fundraising. What is the current VC climate? It might change before this episode drops, right? So I don't know. I just try to build a good company and then show that in the best possible way to the people that are interested to invest. Look, consumer health is such a hard category to raise in. I always have the dream that my next company is going to be a very boring B2B SaaS company, but I don't know. In these days, I don't think that's that easy either. So consumer health, I think, requires a lot of conviction that this category is going to be big in 5 years and 10 years. And I'm very lucky to have found both a group of amazing angel investors and also venture capital firms that believe that that market will be there and that there will be a lot of teams trying to build in that space, but that we apparently have the right combination of engineers, AI specialists, doctors to be able to execute in that space. What exactly the shape is going to be, we'll see. But that's the key bet that I and my investors are making. I think I have, and that's a bit not my normal intuitions. I've always built bootstrapped for most importantly at Coolblue, where every quarter was cash flow positive. We never turned a loss. I would just build and build and build and build. And Google, of course, has more money than God, so it's a very different type of player. Don't get me wrong, but my intuition is always bootstrapped. But I think if you want to build something that is really technology at its core, you have to have enough velocity and be able to scale quickly enough, especially in Europe, across countries, because one country won't be big enough for the play I'm making, that you need to raise them up enough. So counter to my normal intuitions, I've raised a bit more to be able to execute fast enough.
Great. I think it's a great insight. I mean, like coming in with that bootstrapping mentality of
Mhm.
like, look, I can do this lean and I know how, and I'm going to start with that foundation. And if I need to layer on more slowly but surely, I can and I will. And also thinking of money and fundraising as energy. I want to move a little bit faster. So I'm going to pour on a little bit more than I normally would. I think that's a really smart way to think about it. Well done.
And then one and done. Okay, I don't want to repeat myself, so I need to reframe this, I guess. For me, it'd be very clear. Today we're one and done. You go to us for a comprehensive checkup, and then we recommend you to do another checkup maybe in 6 months. And we see the first people returning for that. So I'm very excited about that. But we don't have a subscription yet, or a membership, or an app that gives you notifications every week. So that's exactly the thing I want to go and build. It's a fast-moving target in the AI world. ChatGPT Health, OpenAI Health, Perplexity Health will all do something that looks a bit like what I could do. Integrate different data sets and then create some usefulness around it. I think for us to be the right play and the thing that sticks around, I want to lean very much into the medical side so that it is, in the end, connection to your local healthcare ecosystem. In this case, Switzerland or Germany, maybe your city, because in the end, it will be a while before ChatGPT can give you prescriptions or referrals into other specialists, can book you an appointment at the clinic that you really want to get a booking into. I think for us to be top of mind for you on at least a monthly basis, we need to be the center of gravity for your preventive healthcare journey. So we need to be top of mind when you think, okay, how do I handle X or Y in that journey? And then you open us and then you get an answer. Maybe an answer is first given by an AI, but there's always a button to get in touch with that doctor that you know believes in prevention, which is not as rare, and also is helpful on that journey. So that's how I currently think about it. And we're working hard on that vision to come alive over the next months and quarters.
Oh, that's great. I love that too, that phrase, the center of gravity for your preventative health journey. You know, keeping that as the North Star, I think is critical. And you can really see how you're building, you know, different layers to get there. So that's very exciting.
Thanks.
Last question. We just want to end with a kind of a personal question, like reflecting back on your, you know, your experience in tech and tech leadership. You've had multiple roles, right? You've been a CTO, CPO, CMO, I believe as well. Now you're a founder and CEO. And I would love to understand, like, what are you bringing from all those roles you've had in the past to your leadership at Ahead Health? And also, do you believe that, you know, kind of founders today, modern founders, and you kind of alluded to this when you're talking about your CMO and your CTO and your role, do they need to be full stack leaders, or is that just kind of a specific byproduct of your specific journey? Just curious.
Companies aren't built by one person. Companies are built by teams. So I believe in full stack teams. And full stack means the stack you need to chip away at the problem you're solving. So I wouldn't be able to do what I do without my co-founders, doctors, biomedical engineer, AI specialists. So I think it's more about full stack teams than full stack individuals. I do think that it is very helpful to have a bit of technical skills these days in every role, whether you're a CMO that needs to look up whatever cool agentic framework to deliver your meta ads, or if it's a COO trying to optimize a process. I feel that, and I see that, like small teams can get so much more done because they don't have to do as many meetings, but they can spend more of their time in a command line interface building stuff, which is open on my other tab right now. So that's how I view it. And then maybe to go to your first question, what I take away from the other roles, I think it's a lot about, like, action gives information. You can live in your product requirement document. You can have your vision one pager, but in the end, from the first thing I've built as a micro founder to what I did at Kublu, get things out in the world and see how people respond, and then change course, because I now can get to do that again. Because I lost coding for a while. I've been hacking around stuff with PHP for a lot of my career. And then I lost it for probably 12, 15 years or so. And now I can do it again. It's so amazing to be able to have this superpower and go build things for users and see how they respond. So I think that's something I hope to see in every team member. And I expect to see a lot of every founder in 2026 is just ship stuff yourself again and see how you can inspire your team with it, and how you can inspire, hopefully, users to go be customers of yours.
Yeah, I love that energy, and I appreciated that sort of builder mentality, and that you know, in your founding CMO job description, talking about, you know, I need someone who ships, you know, so like we don't need lots of meetings. We need someone who ships and uses that as you know, a tool to get reactions and get feedback and then iterates. And I think it's a really interesting moment where we've got these incredible tools now, and it's kind of asking everyone to become a builder.
Yep.
and to like lose a bit of the anxiety and the nervousness around putting their work out in the world and getting feedback on it from customers, from colleagues. And it's tough. I think it's an emotional journey for some folks who maybe aren't used to that or don't have that
Yep.
confidence in what they build, but the moment is asking it, of us. So it's exciting, but also I think,
Super
tricky and
scary.
challenging. It's super scary. Yeah, exactly. So, and it's okay to say that. Like, I mean, you've got this amazing career at Google and what you're doing now. And even you're saying it's scary and that's okay. And so
It is.
cool. Well, I mean, look, this has been a fantastic conversation. We'll cut it there. Nick, I think you're from the earliest days in e-commerce to like kind of the cutting edge of AI health shows that, if you focus on the customer and your impact and customer obsessed, you don't have to be reactive. You can start to go on that journey and be predictive and preventative and really help people on their health journey. And that's amazing. So really cool to see what y'all are doing. Where can folks find out more about you and the good work you're doing at Ahead Health?
Book a checkup at headhealth.com. Come visit me in Zurich. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think I post most there, so feel free to send me a DM. Happy to respond and get in a chat.
Nice. I love the CTA. The call to action is book a checkup. That's a good one. Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick, so much for your time. I know you're super busy kind of building the operating system for preventative health. No small task, but we really appreciate it. And for our listeners, please give us a review, give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring amazing guests like Nick Lenten, founder and CEO of Ahead Health, onto the pod. This has been another great episode of Tech Can't Save Us podcast brought to you by Literal Humans. As always, I'm Paul David. Thanks for listening, y'all. Take care.